floats all over the heavenly realm. He checks each of the bubbles, searching for the attribute that belongs to him. Unfortunately, he realizes that the balls of energy are practically avoiding him when he comes close. He eventually sees one of the balls left behind, and concludes that it must be the attribute that belongs to him. Of course, he reaches out to touch it thinking that it's unique, one of a kind, and befitting for a person of his caliber. Meanwhile, back in the normal Changshuan world, we see Xiao opening her eyes to see the massive beam of light in the sky. The power all around them is quite overwhelming, so she asks her master what is going on. It turns out that Ludong gave the little girl one of the marrow cleansing grass to eat, asking her to call out if she feels any pain afterward. When Xiao wakes up, her master is shocked, making her think that maybe she wasn't supposed to wake up so quickly. However, she quickly notices that Elder Lu isn't even looking at her, so she turns around to see that the waterfall behind them actually stopped, like it got frozen in time. While she's still trying to figure out why something like this would happen, a blinding light slowly lowers from the clouds, and we see that the reason for this is the sect leader's attribute awakening. Yu Yue and Master Ning also see this incredible event, and they're equally dumbfounded, because they realize that Liu Keo actually awakened a heavenly order. The thing is, only the number 1 attribute awakener who wields the power of heaven and earth can receive the heavenly order. Master Ning points out how both the swordsman and Dong Li didn't manage to trigger it, because they weren't the first attribute awakeners of their powers. Hearing this, the already furious Yu Yue concludes that the Mo sect leader not only awakened his attribute, but he is also the very first person to wield the power of heaven and earth. Even though he's pretty annoyed to see this achievement, the swordsman is curious to find out what kind of power the sect leader has awakened. His thoughts are interrupted, however, when his master suddenly reveals that it's the attribute of water. Meanwhile, the other people of Changshuan who are watching the magnificent moment all wonder which sect's disciple the hero is, to be able to call upon the heavenly order. But even though they're all astounded by the sight, they know that there's nothing impressive about the hero's power if he can only trigger the heavenly order 4 or 5 times at best. While they're saying all of this, Liu Keo remains in the sky, surrounded by some bright light and water. For some reason, he can't open his eyes and hears someone talking to him with a loud voice. Just then, he triggers the heavenly order for the 6th time. And while he's at it, his sister watches from below, praying that he would last until the 9th or 8th time at least. Like everyone else, Yu Yue watches the event eagerly, and recalls that according to the ancient scrolls, the lowest person to trigger the heavenly order managed 6 times, while all those who went higher than that did it based on their cultivation power. Suddenly, Master Ning asks him how many times he thinks the sect leader can trigger the heavenly order, and in response, the boy replies that the higher it is, the better, because he can't possibly guess anything about the heavenly order. Meanwhile, back in the sky, Liu Keo finally realizes that the heavenly order turns out to be the repeater, and while he's coming to this conclusion, his sister sees that he's triggered it for the 8th time. But before she can even process that fact, our boy goes in for number 9, shocking her once again. At this point, the sect leader realizes that his fate is up to him to decide, especially since he achieved this feat by himself. And so, he finally opens his eyes to complete his attribute awakening. Our handsome hero comes down from the sky with a message in front of him, confirming that he has successfully awakened his water attribute, and that he has now acquired the power of heaven and earth. A smirk appears on his face as he flexes his new powers, and then his sister approaches him to ask him how he feels. But before he can say anything, her little disciple chimes in, asking the sect leader if she can get more of the marrow cleansing grass because she loves its taste. Although she doesn't notice, her little stunt earns her death glares from her master, but Liu Keo doesn't seem to care at all. Instead, he responds to his sister's question, claiming that the world feels a lot clearer now that he has his powers. And he says this while displaying his new unique ability to control the water around them with ease. As he gathers the drops of water and disperses them over and over, he admits that this new power seems really useful in many ways, so his sister congratulates him on acquiring his water affinity. The infatuated girl just gets even more attracted, and cautions herself not to drool all over the place since she keeps recalling the taste of the marrow cleansing grass. While she's wiping her face and getting a grip on herself, the sect leader realizes that he can also control the water inside the bodies of humans. With such incredible power, Liu Keo concludes that he can now manipulate the water as long as there's a source around, which makes it a lot stronger than he had expected. A while later, Dong Li returns from erasing all the marks they left in the surroundings, and informs her brother that they can begin their journey back home. The sect leader commends her for being dependable as always, but claims that no one would know of the miracle he just performed now that she's erased the traces. While using her wind power to turn a leaf into another magic carpet, she reminds him that they have to stay low, because his miracle would only lead to death if powerful people find out about it. The next thing we see is the Mo sect members leaving on their flying leaf, and as they do, we see the spiteful swordsman watching them, thinking about how the man who once dominated over him has probably returned. Master Ning, on the other hand, expresses mild delight that the sect leader has finally shown some potential. However, her disciple remains disturbed, feeling that he's forgetting about something important. And that's when he realizes that it's the fact that Liu Keo still hasn't achieved his breakthrough. He informs his master about it, but she reveals that she is already aware of this fact, and sincerely hopes that nothing bad happens to their sect leader. While they're busy worrying about his breakthrough, the handsome hero is facing a completely different dilemma. Now that he's gathered enough experience points to level up, he's not sure how many levels he should go up first. He doesn't want to use too many at once, because he might need them to restore his mana, use powerful moves at crucial times, or even gain skill upgrades in the future. But while he's deep in thought, his sister interrupts him by asking the crew to raise their hands if they want to drink the spirit spring water. The two disciples on board grab the opportunity and gulp down the water at once. Dongli then offers her brother a drink, and as he takes the cup from her, he decides how much he's going to level up at first. In an instant, our handsome hero breaks through 5 levels with a single drink, leaving his sister stunned. To him, it's nothing special, but the spies who are still tailing them are equally astonished when they witness this phenomenon. As if Yue wasn't already scared of our hero, now he's seeing his former bully use a single cup of water to go up 5 levels in rank, without even having to sit down or meditate. Seeing this, Master Ning can't help but admit that the sect leader's achievement is quite impressive, because it's impossible for even a genius to level up 5 ranks in a single try. While she's pondering how he managed to accomplish it, her disciple suddenly yells out, claiming that he understands, and suggesting that the sect leader must have intentionally stayed in the beginner's rank all this time. Yue finally realizes that Lukeo never gave up on himself or refused to cultivate further, but in fact, he had his own plans all along. After coming to this conclusion, he asks himself if he would have been able to display the same amount of patience, which makes him realize that he can't compare himself to his rival. While he's beating himself up about the whole thing, his master continues to think about our boy's incredible breakthrough, claiming that it's not so shocking to her after all. That's because she knows that he's always been a peculiar child from birth. And the fact that he never showed any signs of disappointment or negative emotions, despite being stuck at beginner's rank for so long, proves that he has an unbreakable spirit for cultivating. Meanwhile, back on the Mosek's flying carpet, Xiao Q notices that Lukeo looks very worked up, so she asks his disciple if he knows anything. However, the boy tells her that he doesn't know either, and she suddenly points out how he doesn't talk much. All of a sudden, the little girl burps, and a blue aura covers her body, leaving her and everyone else shocked. She begins to panic and asks the elders what's going on, but her master pulls her into a tight hug, congratulating her for becoming a rank 1 cultivator. Xiao is shocked to hear this, and then a message from the system appears to confirm that the Mo sect has now officially fulfilled the standards of a 9th rank sect. Under the message, there's a prompt asking our hero if he'd like to accept the sect's advancement. And as you'd expect, he doesn't hesitate to smash the confirm button. Just like how you shouldn't hesitate to smash that subscribe button either. After the advancement of his sect, another message appears, revealing that he has received 5,000 more experience points, along with 1 attribute for his swordsmanship aptitude. Seeing this, our boy can't help but feel that the rewards are out of this world. Because of the bonus point, his sword aura attribute will be increased in every aspect. He's especially delighted to see that his swordsmanship is no longer at 1, because now he can use some of his experience points to unlock Sword Intent, which is the highest realm in sword cultivation. The thought of his skills skyrocketing after this boost makes him super excited, but he quickly remembers that the brat Yue is also a main character in this world. The guy was born with a swordsmanship aptitude of 10, and he's known as the flawless swordmaster. Our hero gets jealous at the thought of this, and starts to feel like he should be called the flawless charmer since his charm is also at 10. While he's still nagging about it, the notification of a mission called the Second Ring interrupts him. This mission is basically to advance the Mo sect from the 9th rank to the 8th, which our hero feels is a bit too sudden. The mission rewards and requirements are displayed, and our boy sees that he needs to accumulate 1,000 points for the sect's reputation. He also needs 3 level 2 cultivators, and finally, the sect must have over 100 disciples. Even though his sect reputation has increased a lot from before, he admits that they still have a long way to go. Just then, another message appears, informing him that he's now at level 15, which unlocks the Master-Disciple system function. Seeing this, he remembers that he can gain experience points by accepting disciples, so he decides to give it a shot. However, when he pushes the button, he's baffled to see the name, Master Lu Qingfeng. From the color of the font, we realize that this character has passed away. And seeing this, the sect leader starts to recall the sad memory of his late parents. He also remembers a poem from his previous life, which he didn't understand till he was reborn in Tiangshuan. Despite the sadness that washed over him, he assures his late parents that the Mo sect will prosper in his hands. As for Ko's disciple, my man notices that he's still just a rank 10 noob. He can't believe he forgot about his disciple all this time, so he decides that it's high time the boy got his own breakthrough as well. A while later, the sect leader confronts his disciple about leveling up, and asks him why he hasn't done it for so long. Hai Ting doesn't say anything, but then we see a flashback of an old man, telling people about a child consumed by evil. He warns them to beware of this child, claiming that would take the lives of many. Sure enough, this child turns out to be the little Hai Ting. Because of the old man's prophecy, the people began to think that the little child caused the death of his parents, so they plot to throw him out of their village before he can bring them any misfortune. However, just when they're about to carry out this heinous act, Lukeo appears from the crowd, revealing that he's a disciple of the Mo sect, and demanding that they bring him some water to drink. The people turn to look at the person talking, and are immediately mesmerized by his charming appearance. He then turns to the terrified little boy, and asks him if he's really the child that evil has rooted itself in. Afraid and naive, he admits it with tears in his eyes, so our hero offers to take him in as his disciple, regardless of all the rumors. As you'd expect, the crowd tries to discourage him, claiming that the child isn't normal, but he angrily tells everyone to shut up. The handsome cultivator then proceeds to announce that henceforth, the child will serve under him, and that he would take responsibility for whatever happens to him in the future. Little Haiting can't believe his eyes, and while he's still staring in awe, the hero tells him to follow closely behind him, warning him that he won't care about him if he falls along the way. The journey up the mountain was hellish for the poor kid, and Lukeo had to actually save him from falling. And after looking closely at his face, he joked about the boy being ugly, before telling him to hold tightly to his hand because the road ahead is harsh. In the present, as the master and disciple stand on the flying magic leaf, our hero reveals the parable of the best way to create a great evil. The sect leader states that it starts by giving the child a bunch of abilities, allowing him to lead a horrible life, showing him a little glimmer of light, and then putting out that light at the end. However, he tells Haiting that he's different, claiming that he is the light, and the future most dependable person in the whole world of Jiangxuan. The disciple is stunned to hear this, but our hero just assures him that the darkness in his heart will eventually turn to mist and disappear. The sect leader declares all of this with a flashy display of his power, as he controls the shapes of the clouds and leaves his disciple in a daze. As they soar above the clouds, Haiting is pushed to tears by his master's kindness. A blue aura covers his body, and it's confirmed that in the year 14,921 of the Jiangxuan calendar, Mo Sect's eldest disciple, Haiting, broke through the beginner's rank with just a single look at the skies. Another message suddenly appears, confirming that Haiting has successfully leveled up, and as such, our hero earns 5,000 more experience points. Like the main character he is, he praises himself for being very talented when it comes to educating others. Sure enough, when Xiao sees his latest achievement, she has nothing but praise and admiration for him. She begins to applaud him for his awesomeness, and while she's at it, even Yue, who's still stalking them, can't help but admit that the sect leader is truly amazing. He's surprised to see how the hero used the power of heaven and earth, because he initially assumed that there's not much to awakening his attribute in the beginner stage. But after seeing him use his new power to dispel the mental barrier hindering his disciple's heart, the swordsman finally concludes that only Lukeo is capable of doing something so incredible. Regardless, he can't help but think that the master and disciple are an ill-fated pair. Meanwhile, Dongli approaches the duo in question, and suggests that they travel on a magic flying item henceforth, since they've both gotten their breakthroughs. Hearing this, the sect master asks his sister where his own item is, and comments that he'd like a limited edition carpet like the leaf boat from Auntie Ning. Unfortunately, she doesn't know what he means by limited edition, and her hungry disciple thinks that maybe it's something edible. Seeing this, the sect leader reveals that he's in a good mood, so he promises to treat them all to something good, if his sister can find them a good place to descend. The two disciples are delighted to hear this, and it appears that Dongli is equally as excited, because she suddenly speeds up the flying carpet so they can find a good place to land. Xiao complains about the speed, but her master informs her that she'll understand later when she tastes the sect leader's food. Of course, it makes the little girl wonder if our hero is really that good at cooking. Not long after they touch down, Dongli bolts off to catch some fish for the meal. And while she's gone, the disciples help set the table. In the process, our hero calls Xiao closer so that he can teach her a thing or two about how to be a cultivator. The little girl hesitates a bit at first, but her hesitation is soon blasted away by the charming smile of our hero. Not long after, an excited Dongli returns, announcing that she caught 2 fish. But she stops in her tracks when she sees her brother teaching her disciple about what to do, when a defeated opponent is still being stubborn. The sight catches her off guard, but when she watches for a while, she realizes that the two are really getting along. Xiao is practically finishing the sect leader's sentences at this point, and the latter finds her to be a very promising talent. However, Dongli is horrified by this, because she fears that her brother has infected the little girl with his delusional behavior. So, she does what she feels is best, and breaks up the wholesome moment with a surprise attack on the two. A while later, we see a moody Lukeo preparing the meal while his sister scolds the girl, warning her not to act like the sect leader, because it could get her in a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, it's too late for these lessons now, because the girl seems to have already been infected with the hero complex. She tells her master not to worry, assuring her that she'll secure the future of the sect. While our hero praises her for this bold declaration, his sister is literally shedding tears at the loss of an innocent mind. The scene shifts, and we see the crew arriving back home at the peak of the Dan King Mountain. Dongli gladly announces that they've returned, but suddenly lets out a burp by accident. Seeing the not-so-ladylike behavior, Xiao asks her master if she really just burped, right before doing the same thing by accident. Of course, the older of the two gets a bit defensive, pointing out that the little girl just did the same thing. Looks like they really enjoyed the delicious fish soup the sect master prepared for them earlier. The master chef in question thinks about how all of his efforts were a joke, and remembers how he had to learn all sorts of Western and Chinese dishes just so he could gain favor from someone he knew in the past. As the crew lands at the entrance of their home, the spies from earlier, Yu Yue and Master Ning, welcome them from their travels, pretending like they've been at home the entire time. The swordsman feels that his master should have been an actress, because even though they literally follow them throughout, she wants them to pretend like it's a coincidence that they're meeting at the entrance. Our hero gets down from the flying leaf to greet them, and after revealing that they went on a trip, he asks if she had to wait long for them. The pretentious woman claims that their meeting is only a coincidence, and then congratulates the sect leader on his breakthrough, after acting like she only just noticed. Our boy tries to take a shot at diving into her enticing chest, but she sees him being naughty and stops him in his tracks. He then requests to receive a leaf boat from her, and the woman somehow agrees to grant his request. It's only after he's done talking with her that he even notices Yu Yue's presence. The sect leader recognizes him as the little brat from years back and taps him on the head, but when the swordsman doesn't react, he finds it a bit strange. Lukeo recalls the time when he and Yu Yue would always fight after he bullied him, but now that he no longer retaliates, he fears that the guy might have awakened his inner masochist. Bro starts to feel weird about it, and hopes that Yu Yue hasn't picked up some weird kinks. A bit disgusted at the thought, he suggests that everyone should head inside, and Auntie Ning offers to help him with his cultivation if he runs into any trouble. She also offers to answer all of Dong Li's questions on the topic, and sure enough, the more mature sibling has tons of things to ask. By the time she's done asking, they're already inside and seated at the table for a meal. The busty auntie asks Ko if he doesn't have any questions, so he finally asks her if it's better for someone with a low cultivation level to break through to higher ranks first, or to cultivate their sword intent first. The question shocks Ning and her disciple, because they didn't expect him to be talking about sword intent so soon. The reason he's asking is because it takes 10,000 experience points to unlock his sword intent, and it takes the same amount for him to level up 3 times, so he wants to know which of the two options is greater. Theoretically speaking, Auntie Ning admits that it's better for a swordsman to master the sword intent as early as possible, because from ancient times, all the cultivators who reached the peak of swordsmanship had mastered their sword intent much earlier than others. She further explains that after mastering the sword intent, his ability would be greatly enhanced each time he breaks through a rank. However, as for swordsmanship cultivation without sword intent, his ability's improvement would be slow and lack in the basics. Unfortunately, even though she reveals all of this to our boy, she still feels that he's nowhere near ready to master the sword intent, and she thinks that it would be fruitless if he insists on mastering it. But of course, our boy assures her that he will master his sword intent, and that he won't fall below anyone's expectations. His bold statement shocks the master so much that she almost chokes on the tea she was drinking. While wiping her mouth clean, she points out that she never expressed such an expectation of him, before bluntly telling him that it's impossible to quickly master something so difficult. In cultivation manhwas, sword intent is always something deeply connected to the enlightenment of your soul, and is always a difficult thing to achieve. But it looks like our hero doesn't have any desire to listen, and he'll simply keep brute forcing through all of his missions.